技の日ですよね。すっごくお得な裏技ご紹介します。お楽しみに。今強い地震が起こりました。カメラマン皆さん。
Japan is no stranger to natural disasters and has suffered from some of the worst in recent history, such as the Kobe earthquake in '95 and of course the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami in 2011. Because these were deeply traumatic on a national level, it's not a subject too many people are interested in reliving through media. Nevertheless, this stuff does get made in the form of books and movies which tend to frame these events within emotional narratives that explore themes of loss, finding hope amongst the despair, and even critique of authority and society as a whole. One example of this is Japan Sinks, a 1973 novel by Sakyo Komatsu that got an anime adaptation in 2020, which received fairly mixed reviews. When it comes to the idea of gamifying these events, it feels inherently wrong due to the interactive nature of the medium. As gamers TM, there's an odd juxtaposition, as most of us have no problem simulating American soldiers killing Nazis in a conflict that saw the death of millions. But this could be put down to player agency and consent. We take on the role of heroes who signed up knowing the dangers, wanting to fight a clear evil. When you're in the middle of an earthquake, there's no antagonist, no one to direct your ire towards, and it's the idea of tragedy being turned into a spectacle that may not sit well with people. Disaster Report, or Zettai Zetsume Toshi in Japan, is a series that faced its share of criticism upon its release in 2002. Its creator, Kazuma Kujo, wanted to recreate the tension of experiencing a devastating earthquake, with gameplay centered around exploration and survival, along with multiple endings based on a series of ethical choices made along the way. A sequel was released on PS2 in 2006, then a third for the PSP in 2009, but the fourth, dubbed Summer Memories, which was planned for the PS3, was cancelled by developer Irem in 2011 following the Tohoku earthquake, leading to Kujo leaving the company. According to a Gamatsu interview with him from 2012, Irem received hundreds of letters criticizing them for creating such an insensitive game, though there were a few letters of support, including one from a government employee living in a disaster-struck area urging them to release the game. Kujo subsequently formed a new studio named Granzella, and in 2014 purchased the IP from Irem, then in 2018 finally released Disaster Report 4 for the PS4. But let's rewind back to 2002 to a devastating earthquake that hits a man-made island in the Pacific, which leaves the main character, Masayuki, stranded on a quickly collapsing bridge. Taking on the role of this hapless journalist on his way to a new job in Capital City, our first task is to get him off this train. Our next task is to grab a bag dropped by a rescue helicopter. Nice aim, you fucking dickhead. I've experienced a fair amount of earthquakes during my time here in Japan, from the slightest of shakes to TVs falling off the stands, and the game does a good job of simulating them. Aftershocks periodically shake the screen, and amid the rumble of Earth's tectonic plates, I've noticed my heart beating faster than usual. Wonder if it's all this coffee. Further ahead, we learn that death is waiting to pull us into its dark void, whether through a misstep, environmental hazards, or simple curiosity. We also learn that the game shares a bit in common with Resident Evil, such as the story being drip-fed through a series of letters and articles, and the inventory management system. You pick up a lot of items along the way without knowing how important they are, but where Disaster Report differs is that you don't get an item box to store things for later, which often means leaving stuff behind or discarding items entirely to make room for new ones. After spotting one of the game's single-use items up ahead, in this case a rope, the first environmental puzzle is introduced. These timed challenges force you to calculate and maneuver with fine precision the somewhat clunky controls. Masayuki jumps automatically when standing at the edge of a platform, so if you're not lined up correctly, using the rope, we rappel through a train to save a university student named Mari in a magnificent display of upper body strength, which concludes in a cutscene that lasts just a bit too long. Together we traverse the perilous terrain, and you may appreciate the small attention to detail, like Mari taking off her shoes when we boost her up as to not cave Masayuki's skull in with her heels. The numerous water sources scattered throughout the city function as save points, and are where we can restore the energy bar marked as QP. I don't know what QP means and I'm not going to look, but every action in the game requires it, and if it's completely drained, we'll start losing health. We finally make it off the bridge and see the scale of devastation firsthand, with abandoned vehicles littering the streets and half-collapsed buildings looming above. We can scavenge some useful items from the vehicles, including a crowbar which is used to pry open doors and whatnot, and a handy pair of gloves. A bit further ahead in a shop there's a pair of sunglasses, and while they certainly make Masayuki look badass, they also dim the screen when pressing triangle and going into first-person view, which is more of a hindrance than anything else. With the road ahead blocked, we help Mari climb to a higher area, and she brings us a fire extinguisher that we have no room for, so have to throw away 2 perfectly good bottles of water. The extinguisher's used to clear a path blocked by fire, where on the other side lies a man who's bleeding out from a gunshot wound. He begs us for some water, but we've only got 1 bottle now and, well, looks like he's going to be dead soon anyway, so... After witnessing his death throes, a ghoulish-looking man comes skulking out of the shadows and tells us he saw an armed gunman walking around. I think he could have come up with a better excuse for murdering this thirsty corpse given the circumstances, but I suppose we caught him off guard. A news broadcast on the old ham radio tells survivors to get to the middle of the island for evacuation, and following some platforming, we reunite with Mari and find ourselves in a construction site where we meet a photojournalist named Koji.
困ってる人っていうのはんああ、困ってる人俺はあこの先に行きたいんだが、どうも上の階と同時に動かさないとダメらしい。
Not wanting to risk his own hide, he sends us off to complete a dangerous task that'll allow us to get through to the other side, and we die a few times in the process.
失礼。
早く。
One of the things this game does throughout its playtime is test your ability to see into the future. On a first playthrough, there's no reasonable way to anticipate what's going to fall or where, so it feels pretty cheap when dying this way. The rain's pouring down when we get through, giving us a reason to use this umbrella, but despite the rain slowly draining Masayuki's energy, water sources are pretty abundant, so that's not really an issue. And it doesn't quite feel right making Mari stand there getting soaked, so give it to her. I also like how she holds it above us when we stand beside her. It's almost like someone cares about me. Koji tells us the evacuation point is most likely at the park and offers to take us halfway, but it means running head first into a half-collapsed building, and Muggins here pulls the short straw. The auto jump wreaks havoc here as we skirt around the edges of each floor, wondering where to go. And it's here that we can make use of the brace mechanic, mapped to R1. There hasn't really been a reason to use it up until now, but when an aftershock throws us to our death while traversing the narrow ledge, it becomes evident that a lot of damage could have been avoided, or at least negated, from the tons of debris that's already fallen on Masayuki's head today. We find a couple of office workers, one of whom has a large steel pipe sticking out of his leg, which is gonna put his position at the company at risk, I imagine. He tells us this disaster was just waiting to happen, that the construction company cut too many corners and ignored warnings of the land beneath the city being unstable. We get a bit more information reading through a couple of formal complaints made by local residents, which include a roaring sound that could be heard underground during heavy rain, and their subsequent plan to sue the government. The old lady tells us we need a key to open the door, which is sitting just a few yards away, alongside a photo of her grandson, which proves to be very dear to her.
ありがとうございます。
お孫さんですか？
はい。今年小学校に上がったばかりで。
Unfortunately, she doesn't have much time to cherish it as another aftershock hits and brings the building down. We rush out with Koji showing an exemplary display of heroism. And after helping Mari back to her feet, we're subjected to a heart-wrenching cutscene in which the remnants of an elderly woman's joy are spewed forth from the clasp of Satan's tendrils, her love and compassion surviving through this act of God. The trio find themselves at a crossroads, and we have a big decision to make. The choice between going to Mari's home to help her find her dog, or going with Koji to an amusement park. I personally don't want to miss the opportunity to meet our first member of the Good Boy Club, nor do I think it appropriate to ride the teacups at this present moment, so Mari it is. And anyway, if we went with Koji, we wouldn't be able to make this sweet raft. In order to build the raft, we need to gather the required materials scattered around the next area. It's similar to Resident Evil again, how some items present us with nothing more than a confirmation that it'll be of some use, and requires us to venture into our bag and select the right tool manually to retrieve them. It's quite amusing that this game feels more like Resident Evil in its moment-to-moment gameplay than anything released after the series went to shit. Another mechanic that has until now been unneeded, and will, again after this one occasion, become redundant, is yelling. Oi! To get this rope dangling over the river, we need to call Mari to assist, leading to a cutscene which sees her sitting at one end of the fallen lift. Where before we may try and fail several times to get the rope and jump to safety, we now have those few extra seconds needed. Once the raft's been built, we can use some nearby paint to decorate it and are given 4 choices, though in reality there is no choice, for only a cretin would choose anything other than the option marked kawaii. With the conclusion of this thrilling section, we're one step closer to finding Mari's, no doubt, adorable dog.
Oi!
There have been pieces of protective clothing found along the way, namely this durable yet stylish hard hat and a pair of gloves, though the gloves disappeared at some point, which is a shame as they would have prevented us from taking damage while we crawl over broken glass in the pitch black.
ねえ家でゲームしない？
いいよ。
はいはいはいはいはいはいはいはいはいはいはいはいはいはいはいはいはいはいはいはいはいはいねえ家でゲームしない？さあどこ？これこっちでしょ。どっち？これなんだこれ？あれ？目がない。目は？豆みてえのこれ。あ、これ眉毛。
地図。
The path to the next area is blocked by fire, so you'd imagine we'd need to find a fire extinguisher like we did last time. Well, you'd be wrong. After running around for just over 23 minutes according to my captured footage, this mythical extinguisher was nowhere to be seen. Plastic coat hangers on the other hand, there's plenty of those, which can be used to slide down an electrical line and over the fire. After a quick change of headwear and a brief moment of dogless despair at Mari's apartment, our fluffy boy makes his much anticipated entrance.
もういいです。
そうなのか。そうだ、犬は？
ゲンいませんでした。連れて行ってくれたのかな。あ、ゲン、無事だったんだ。よかった。
The radio tells us the next evacuation point is the park, so we commandeer a bike and put Gen in the front basket so he can enjoy the view. He ends up getting loose and running down into the subway, but we would be foolish to ignore his keen survival instincts, so follow him down. The roof collapses in behind us and we're thrust into darkness, but there is a proverbial light in the form of Gen's little head poking out of Mari's bag.
Wait. Go back one.
What do you say?
Bring his face up. Full screen.
Using our trusty crowbar, we can break through a door to enter the underground waterworks, where at the end we finally see daylight. But disaster strikes once again as an aftershock hits while we're halfway up a ladder. Thankfully Gen's alright and Mari can take him to safety. We, on the other hand, are gonna suffer through several mishaps such as auto-jumping into fire and Masayuki's refusal to grab one particular ledge if not lined up inch perfect, which with these controls is easier said than done. Each death is more annoying than the last, and having to redo the whole section again and again may increase the temptation to leave him burning alive in this inferno. With the successful completion of this section, we head to Masayuki's new place of work, which is unfortunately still standing, and currently occupied by the editor-in-chief, Hideaki.
おお、遅かったな。道に迷ってたか？これからよろしく。編集長の西山だ。
よろしくお願いします。
ということは、空港からここまで歩いてきたんだな。
It's revealed here that Mari's uncle, Yoshitaki, is the one who built the island, though Hideaki tells us he believes the construction company is equally at fault for the disaster, and hints at it being man-made before giving Masayuki his first job, to go to the construction company's office down the street and steal some documents that'll prove his theory. I don't know about you, but listening to a fat bald man ramble on about conspiracies is giving me bad vibes. So let's take his recorder and cowboy hat and set off.
We're fighting a pedophile conspiracy, but beyond that, it's a vampire conspiracy in that they are interdimensionally sucking the essence.
The documents we need are locked in a safe, whose passcode is a date we find in two pieces. The first is on a family photo that shows Mari as a child, which presumably belongs to her uncle, and the second can be found in a recording between him and the construction company boss, Takumi Hada, where they discuss the start date of the island's construction. Just as we get the documents, Hada, who looks very familiar, walks in talking on the phone.
ちゃんとやってますよ。もっと大勢死んだ方が良かったですか？
He jokes about the number of people who have died and also being responsible for the death of Yoshitaki's family, lending weight to Hideaki's theory. Having all the evidence we need, Masayuki decides we need to solid snake our way out. We find ourselves tied up on the roof of the building, staring down the barrel of a gun, but in classic bad guy fashion, Hada decides to just leave him there. I'm not sure if I'm gonna make you watch how long it takes to scooch to freedom like we're participating in some kind of toddler's race on sports day. I'll keep that a surprise. Guess all of it. After escaping, we see the bozos across the road haven't kept an eye on all the candles and have managed to set the building on fire.
Oi! 大丈夫か?
こっちです。
Thankfully Gen's safe and we crawl our way out to the fresh morning air. Hideaki must be tired from working all night, so we have to carry him to the evac point in the park, and after a short rest, the radio tells us there's a boat waiting nearby to take the remaining survivors off the island. We rush ahead to make sure it doesn't leave without us, and are actually given the choice to just jump in and leave them. And if it wasn't for Gen, this game would come to a very premature end. On the way back, some sinkholes threaten to swallow us, but even after the water's been drained, danger still lurks.
こっちこっち。
うわ
And by the time we get back to the rescue boat, some wee twerp has taken one of the spots, And doing some quick maths reveals there's no scenario in which we leave together with the dog, so send the boat off. The next evacuation point is at the stadium, where in front we bump into Koji and a high school student named Natsumi, whom he presumably picked up at the amusement park. Fucking creep. Inside the stadium we don't have to watch any baseball, thank God. We do, however, have to replay several times a section filled with cheap deaths that can only be avoided with prior knowledge of where the debris is going to land. And even then, if you don't start running immediately, you won't escape. Giant blocks fall from the heavens as the field turns into an assault course, with each shake of the screen causing Masayuki to lose his footing. Natsumi runs across the stands, guiding our way until finally escaping, though the group are once again separated, and the gravity of what we're up against hits like a helicopter shooting missiles. We take refuge in a shopping centre, but now have to deal with a couple of mercenaries who follow us inside. This introduces a stealth section in which being seen by the erratically moving gunman results in instant death. The limitations of the camera controls make sure we can't peek around corners to see exactly where the enemy is or in what direction they're looking, leading to several deaths that one may deem bullshit. We use a hose to clear a path. Then, after locking Mari inside a shop, we head further up to where we once again don our solid snake hat and crawl around in the dark past another mercenary. In an ironic twist, in this final dark area of the game we get our hands on a torch, however using it is a death sentence. In our quest to get higher, we face a sniper and are once again faced with Masayuki's greatest adversary, ledges. Trying to line yourself up is a hassle at the best of times, so doing it while you're being shot at, along with his penchant for jumping to his death at any opportunity, isn't really conducive to successfully navigating these hanging platforms. Our reward for reaching the top is the game's one and only boss fight with the helicopter from earlier, which rises from the void of unanswerable questions such as, how did it even get in here? Using the fire hose nearby, you're supposed to spray the helicopter so it turns and can't attack, then spray the chandelier above it. As you can see, I didn't even notice the chandelier was even there, so spent quite a while wondering why this bell end wasn't falling to his death. We hurry to the evac point, but I suppose because the story isn't over yet, we can't climb over this easily scalable fence. and Hideaki, who's safely on the other side with Natsumi, decides against asking the rescue team to wait the 2 minutes it'll take to walk through the building. Although, to be fair, we do spend quite a long time pissing about inside and miss our flight. But when all hope seems lost, the little swamp rat Hada passes by on his way to the bathroom, so the pair safely assume there's another way off the island. The building is a bit of a maze and includes a room filled with control panels and a little model of the city where it's surmised the earthquake was triggered from. Up a few flights of stairs takes us to Mari's uncle's office, where he's currently being grilled by Koji. The pair eavesdrop as Yoshitake tries to convince him that the island is his pride and joy and would never dream of intentionally destroying it, instead blaming its poor foundations. But after Masayuki busts in and plays the recording that states otherwise, he admits he's destroying the island for revenge against the government.
Shinzaki-san, もう一度聞きます。なぜこんなことをしたんですか？
復讐だ。
復讐？
そうだ、復讐だ。
He explains that when the construction company was collecting gravel for the island, the mountain where they collected materials from collapsed on his family and killed them stone dead. Don't laugh, that's not funny. Sinking the island is the only way he can avenge his family and punish the government for whose lack of safety protocols he holds responsible. The second recording reveals that their deaths were no accident, but orchestrated by the little goblin currently pissing downstairs. The reason? Not actually sure, it's probably buried in all the files we collected and haven't bothered to read. So we leave Yoshitake to wallow in his own shame and jump in a speedboat to be chased by mercenaries and suffer another unavoidable death. I mean, how are you supposed to know to hold R1 here? Koji steers us to the safety of a sinking building, where the rising water forces us into a hectic sprint up the stairs, and by pure luck manage to avoid all the random debris rolling down. But the danger isn't over yet. During a one-sided gunfight with the mercenaries on the roof, Koji, the photojournalist, paragon of truth and justice, possible sex pest, sacrifices himself to save the dog, giving us our chance to escape. In his final moments, he entrusts Masayuki with writing the story of Capital City and exposing the truth. With nowhere left to go, the pair make for the roof of the next building, where Hada awaits them and shoots Masayuki. Only for Mari's uncle to jump off the helicopter and, after securing her safety, takes his final revenge. They shoot each other for a while before tumbling over the edge and returning to the overflowing swamp they crawled out from.
屋上に被災者発見。ビルの屋上に被災者発見。大丈夫か？救助行けるか？
いつでも行けます。
ただいまより救助開始します。
2005年6月、雨。窓の外の首都島は今見えなくなった。